China, a country of 1.4 billion people that's undergone drastic change and development in the last century. The Catholic Church has been no exception. Christianity has a long and storied history in China, dating back nearly 1,300 years. It's seen periods of flourishing and also of darkness. In the 1950s, as communists took power, religious practice of any kind became illegal, and believers were persecuted harshly. But since the late 1970s, sweeping changes in Chinese society have led to a rebirth of Christianity. And China today is arguably more open than ever to faith.
Today, the people who do not have faith, which is the majority in China.
Nestled inside a bustling city block in central Beijing is Immaculate Conception Cathedral, or as locals call it, Nantong, South Church. It's the oldest church in all of China, dating back to early Jesuit missionaries in the 1600s. Today, hundreds of worshippers are packed into South Church for a really special occasion. 5 new priests are preparing to celebrate their first Mass. 28-year-old John Shi is one of them. He grew up in a traditional Catholic family in a village a few hundred miles north of Beijing. Today marks the culmination of years of formal seminary training for Father John. But he traces his Catholic roots much deeper, to his devout parents and grandparents, and even before that, to missionaries who brought the faith to China centuries ago.
The missionaries, they build the churches everywhere in China. Today, we can see the development of a church in China, the increasing numbers of baptizing every Easter. Really, we have to thank God and thank the missionaries.
Christianity first showed up on Chinese soil in the 7th century, in the form of an early branch of Christianity called Nestorianism. But Nestorian Christianity didn't last long, and it wasn't until 1582, in the arrival of a remarkable Jesuit priest from Italy, that Christianity gained a permanent foothold in China. His name was Matteo Ricci, and his approach to evangelizing China was completely unconventional. Ricci tossed out the old missionary playbook, which often called for imposing Christianity by force. Instead, Ricci worked to find harmony between the Christian faith and Chinese culture.
He learned Chinese. He adopted Chinese dress, Chinese mannerisms, and many Chinese accepted him as a Confucian scholar, as somebody who was as conversant in the Confucian classics as they were.
Ricci and his Jesuit companions were brilliant linguists, scientists, and scholars who introduced Western science and mathematics to China. The emperor was so impressed by their knowledge that he took the unprecedented step of welcoming these foreigners into his imperial court as trusted advisors. He even adopted the Western Gregorian calendar when Ricci amazed him by successfully predicting a solar eclipse on September 22, 1596. South Church, where Father John and his 4 companions are celebrating their first Mass, was founded by Ricci in 1605. The emperor himself gave Ricci the plot of land where the church now stands. For Father John, Ricci's legacy still inspires.
He wears the Chinese clothing. He respects Chinese culture, the Confucius culture. He tried to combine the 2 cultures. I have great reverence to him for his fire, the evangelizing fire in his heart.
Faith here is loud and out in the open. On my last morning in town, Mrs. Liu takes me to a village-wide celebration for the feast Corpus Christi. It's amazing to see hundreds of people crammed into the streets, drumming, singing, and praying traditional Catholic devotions in a fashion uniquely Chinese. Dong'ergo manifests a vibrant rural Catholicism, but it also represents a way of life that's facing extinction in China. And this presents a real challenge to the church. Father Joseph Loftus has worked as a missionary in China for the past 20 years and has had a front row seat to this rapid urbanization.
The issue that is huge here that is not being faced with the seriousness is urbanization or migration to the city. The urbanization that is going on in China is beyond measure compared to urbanization in any other society. People are being lost in that transition.
Chinese society is increasingly open to Catholicism, in part because of its strong commitment to serving the poor and marginalized. Here in Tianjin, and throughout China, the church operates charities, hospitals, and nursing homes. Why is it important for the church in China to engage in works like this?
Because it's who we are. That's what we do. There are people who would say it's important because it has a political dimension, it makes us more acceptable in society, and it does. I was very impressed once when I met a senior Vatican official who was being smoothed actually to say how important it was to support this work because it might lead to better relationships. But his answer was, and I was very impressed by this, it's worth doing for its own sake. And that's what I believe.
And also serves on the staff of China's largest seminary, where over 100 men are training for the priesthood.
So we hope the church in the US to see the positive things, the positive stories. Always negative news. This doesn't help the church in China.
Father Zhang wants China to be better understood and respected in the West, and he sees the church playing a positive role here, building a bridge between East and West, just like in the days of Matteo Ricci.
We learn something from the Matteo Ricci, from the Jesuits, the cultural exchange between the West and China. Very important also for the church.